there's obviously nobody online. Andriska just joined. Just wait for Andriska. Hi, morning, Andriska. How are you doing? Can you hear me, Andriska? Hi, Andriska. Can you just give me an indication that you can hear me? Can you hear me, Andriska?
Hallo meneer, kan meneer my hoor?
Dis reg, ek kan net seker maak of jy daar is. Dit lyk vir my so 'n delay op die sound, maar in elk geval. Hoe gaan dit daarso?
Goed en met meneer?
Ons kan nie kla nie. Thanks that you joined. It's not, as I was about, just before you joined, I actually started the recording and I was going to record because nobody was in the waiting room and nobody was actually joining. And I would have had to do the recording anyway to finish this chapter. So it's going to be just me and you, but obviously the rest we'll see. We'll view the recording sometime later. There are a few things logistically that I just want to start with. You have all received the timetable for your exams for June, so you know exactly when you're writing which subjects. Services marketing would be a 3-hour paper that you will write as an online quiz on the 2nd of July. And there have been specific time slots allocated. It's based on just being fair to everybody, and so people don't cheat. It's a possibility. Obviously, there are measures in place should there be load shedding. But at the moment, on the 2nd of July, your 3-hour exam should be conducted between 8 and 12 in the morning. So we sort of reverted back to where we were at the end of last year with exams during certain time slots. You can imagine, you're writing a 3-hour paper, you're doing it online, 8 o'clock in the morning, you finish by 11. Some of your classmates have not written their exam yet. They plan to do it later in the day. They can chat to you, you can share some information. So that's the main reason behind this, because there's no real way that we can control that it doesn't happen, apart from the fact that we could see the same IP addresses used if students are actually in the same room when they do the online assessment. But then also I'll make a note of that and I'll forward the information to you. If you haven't received that information, make sure that that you read the announcement I'm going to post, which will obviously include that information. The information would be to specifically instruct you to remain available for an hour after your exam has been done, just in case Stadio phones you. It's not an extension of the exam. They're not going to ask you questions. It's just obviously just they're doing random spot checks, and that's part of the way in which the exam will be conducted. 2 things. I will post an announcement. I'm probably going to do it tomorrow after your final session, and that would be to remind you of the exam, the date, the duration, that's 95 marks, some logistical arrangements what chapters we're going to that you have to prepare for the exam. I'm also going to tomorrow in class with your consent, obviously, and it must be a mutual one where you decide what time and date suits you best. The second and third years are on study leave from next week, which means there's no classes, not even online. But I want one more session with you guys next week. And you can decide which day it is. I'll discuss it with everybody tomorrow, so it does not clash with my first year classes. But it can be on the same days that you usually have. It can be at the same time slots. It could be different time slots as well, because it also shouldn't clash with any of your other sessions, but it shouldn't clash with classes because there is no classes next week for second and third years. So in that announcement, I will also confirm the date that we've agreed to have that session. More sort of questions, final preparations for exam, and I will obviously include in the announcement the link for that session, which is not going to be the same as the one that we've used so far during semester, okay, because it's a once-off situation. Having said that, I am available on email throughout the study week as well as the exam. Obviously, people have different exam, or you all have more than one module to write, and 2nd of July might be very far into the future, and you might not have any questions at this stage, but you might have later. You can actually then arrange, and we can have a session to address some of the questions that you might have. Okay, so that's just some logistics. It's in this recording, but we'll discuss it in class again tomorrow, and I will also then post and confirm everything that we've agreed on in an announcement on Canvas tomorrow. Right, what we've learned yesterday, Andrishka, and I'm picking on you because you're the only one here. Basically, we said that your intention as a service provider is always to ensure that you satisfy the customer. But we know that sometimes customers have unrealistic expectations, and sometimes bad things happen, and the service is not up to standard. There could be many reasons for that. We've identified most of them yesterday, but more importantly in this final chapter is how do we deal with it? Because as I said yesterday, to me, a complaining customer is actually a great opportunity to tell me exactly where I'm going wrong. And I think that should be the attitude that you want all your employees working for you as a service provider to buy into, and you need to train them that the only reason why they are providing a top-class service is because it's the right thing to do, not to take any complaints personally. And there are a few measures in place, obviously, to do that. And it's important, I think, for today's session, for instance, mostly is case study based, where we look at how should a situation have been and how could a situation have been addressed. There is obviously certain instruments in place, like the RevoSat, or RecoSat, recoveries instrument to measure the satisfaction of the customer. In other words, when the customer complained, what did he or she expect the outcome would be compared to what it actually was? That's what a RecoSat basically is used for as a tool. Now, it was developed as an empirical work that attempted to determine what customers expect an organization to do with a complaint that they've received. Complaining customers are often asked about their satisfaction about the action, and that should be done. And again, use the complaint not just as a way of reversing the situation where you have a very, very dissatisfied customer. Try and convert them into becoming to trust you again by the way in which you resolve the complaint. But it's important to regularly, I think, and that's why surveys are done regularly, Find out how the customers actually feel. And you know what? Even if a customer that has complained and the complaint has been resolved in such a way that the customer leaves very satisfied, you have to follow up and say, sir, you had a complaint yesterday. We offered you a refund or compensation, or we replaced the item that you were unhappy with. Are you still okay with it? Again, a feedback, a follow-up on how the complaint was dealt with, although the customer left your premises happy. So that's important to remember, that we have to continuously do that. The reason why we do that is also to be proactive, to try and prevent this from happening again. Because that's what you as a service provider will do once the complaint has been dealt with. You want to now get to the origin of the problem. How can we proactively put measures in place to prevent this from happening again? Not that it might not happen again, but we will be better prepared if it happens again. But we prefer it never to happen again, and therefore we put certain measures in place. Now, when service recovery, this basically refers to how the complaint has been resolved by the service provider. There are a few dimensions that that would satisfy customers. The way in which they communicated, very, very important. The way in which you communicate, your body language immediately when you're listening to the complaint, the manner in which you reply, your tone of voice when you reply, your body language, everything is part of the communication to show the customer, you know what, we're really sorry. We hear what you're saying. We're listening to your problem, and we want to actually offer you a proper solution, so you leave here satisfied. Empowerment refers to specifically ensuring that the employees who are dealing with the complaints, that they have the authority to make decisions to resolve the issue or the problem. People don't want to complain. If we use that image that we have on the screen, you stand in a queue, and the complaints queue is always longer than the gratitude queue. But you get to the front, and that person says to you, oh, you know what, sir, you're actually in the wrong queue. You should speak to so and so. Or, you know what, I can only help you with half of that problem because actually my boss or my line manager or somebody else in a different department is the person. You don't want to hear that when you get to the front of the queue. You want that person at the front of the queue to be in a position of authority that allows them to take decisions to help you resolve your complaint. Feedback, not just on, because sometimes you get telephonic complaints. People phone in and said, listen, we visited your spa on the weekend, and there's a few things that we were unhappy with. We tried to find somebody afterwards that we could speak to about a few things that bothered us. We also were looking for sort of suggestion box or one of these or some way that we can just leave a message, maybe complete a survey that's on our bedside table that we can complete and lodge any complaints that we might have. But we couldn't find, and that's why I'm phoning now. If you have committed yourself to resolving the problem, because it wasn't resolved immediately, because not all problems could instantaneously be resolved. Sometimes it requires you to maybe make 1 or 2 more phone calls. Maybe the complaint was about the behavior of one of the staff members. That staff member is off today. It's actually only working again tomorrow. So you will only be able to follow up with that staff member what happened when they're back at work tomorrow. So you cannot immediately resolve the issue, and therefore you commit to getting back to them. And then obviously the most important thing, once you have made that promise that you'll get back to them and give them feedback on the progress and how the complaint will be resolved, you have to stick to that. There's nothing more annoying for customers to be promised something and then it actually doesn't happen. So feedback is extremely important. Atonement is, to what level are you prepared to assist the customer? Are you going to come? Somebody's in a restaurant. The meal wasn't up to scratch, but the rest of the experience was great. Are you going to say, sir, you know what? Don't worry, you don't have to pay tonight. Or madam, you don't have to pay for the meal tonight. It's on us. We made a mistake. We're very sorry. And that's how we show how much you mean to us. We appreciate your business. We want you to be satisfied. And that's the best way we can do it. That's one way. If you take it to a next level, and say, right, that's what you will do. But in addition to that, sir, madam, next time you come to our restaurant, you don't have to pay either. Here's a voucher. Bring the family or bring two guests. There's a voucher for you for your next visit. That is going to another level of satisfaction. You didn't have to do that, but you're going to that extra level. Why? Because you want the customer back. You want the customer to feel that, wow, the way in which these guys handle complaints, man, I like that. Explanation. The dimension of explanation specifically referred to explaining to the customer that complains what the procedure is that we will now follow to help you resolve your problem. You complained about this. This is what we're going to do, sir. This is what we can do at the moment, and this is how the process works. If you communicate in a right tone of voice and you give them a proper, clear explanation with specific deadlines where you can, don't commit to a deadline if you know that you can't make it. But if there are certain commitments that you can make because you know it's in your control, then obviously you can do that. But make sure that you explain everything clearly to the customer. And intangibles, the way in which, the way you dress, the complaints person. You could see this person is not going to help me. The whole body language, the way they dress, it's just not. They don't want to be there. They've heard too many complaints, and for them it's just become a job. And your problem, although in your opinion it's the end of the world, to them it really means nothing. Okay, so those are the dimensions that is considered when we're trying to satisfy a complaining customer. Right, there was an example that was, I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. A recall set was done with a European airline. And the result of that study was the following: that if the platinum class customers complained, the best way to satisfy them was to give them immediate, timely feedback and to offer them compensation for what they've lost. Maybe it could have been a flight delay. Maybe it could be that the booking was that they overbooked the flight and you guys and you can't make this flight, for instance. Maybe the flight was cancelled. There could be many reasons. Any complaint that the platinum class customer has lodged, most of them were happy with the conversation and timely feedback. Gold class customers who complained, for them the most important aspect was communication. Just keep us informed as to what's happening. The way in which you deal with us, the way in which you talk to us, that's important to us, more than anything else. Business class travelers, also, communication was important to them, but also compensation. I can expect that. It's business people. That's why I fly business class. They probably have their own businesses. And obviously they know that time is money. And if something like this happens that inconvenienced them, they want compensation. Economy class travelers, for them compensation was the important thing. It's people traveling in economy class, they made a budget decision when they booked a flight. Anything goes wrong, they want compensation for it. Now, if the complaints were about the staff, timely feedback was what satisfied most people that complained. If it was about the baggage or maybe a delay or cancellation in a flight, compensation. But firstly, how it was communicated to you how it was explained to you and properly communicated why, what, and how, and then how are we going to compensate you. Right, just a case study that's airline based. Customers want to feel that justice has been served. And here, with justice, we refer to specifically the fairness of how the problem was handled. Usually when customers evaluate the fairness of how a complaint was handled, they look at three perspectives: the fairness of the outcome, the fairness of the procedure, and the fairness of the interactional treatment. In other words, fairness of the outcome: was the problem resolved? Were they compensated? Was the product that didn't work replaced? What was the outcome? Are they satisfied? Do they think it's a fair offer to keep them satisfied? In other words, what would satisfy? And that's probably one of the most important questions to ask to a customer that complains. Apart from listening, the other most important thing is asking the question, what would satisfy you, sir? What would satisfy you, madam? Because that's very important. Sometimes people complain and they're not really sure what they want. And then sometimes they are very clear about it. We lost this. I paid this. We didn't take the flight. We didn't use there were reasons why we couldn't use that hotel booking that we made. Can you please compensate us? Right. The fairness of the interaction. How fair was the treatment that you received from the staff members that were involved in attempting to resolve your complaint? In other words, if you complained about a particular employee that was rude to you or offensive to you, that person should not be part of the process in attempt to resolve your problem. It's fine if the customer relationship manager separately speak to the employee in question. It shouldn't happen in front of the complaint, in front of the plaintiff. Okay, that's the person that they are unhappy about. So the fairest solution here is to hear your side of the story, separate to hearing the side of the customer or the employee that's involved, and then making a call based on that information. But do not have those people, the plaintiff as well as the employee involved, in the same conversation. That's going to most often end up in a shouting match. You're the referee, and there's no real winner in a situation like that. Fairness of outcome, fairness of procedure, fairness of the interactional treatment. Justice. Three types of justice, three-dimensional concept here that we refer to is distributive justice, procedural justice, and interactual justice. Now, distributive justice refers to do the customer feel that they got proper compensation, adequate compensation for their emotional distress, the fact that they were angry and that it actually raised their blood pressure and that they were inconvenienced. Do they feel that the compensation that they received was actually adequate? Then they will see it as fair. This is what's referred to as distributive justice. Procedural justice refers to the process that was followed to resolve the problem. Do the customer feel that the process that was followed or the process that was explained and suggested to them in how the problem will be solved, do they feel it's fair? Interactional justice referred to what I've just said in the previous screen, where the person involved, the person that what the complaint or who the complaint was about, that person obviously is not involved in the interaction in an attempt to resolve the problem fairly. How do you manage service recovery? Well, most importantly is to empower your staff so they are in a position to handle and resolve the complaint. You do not find a situation like you have in the image on the bottom of the screen, where the guy on the left is blaming the guy in the middle, the guy on the right is blaming the guy in the middle, and the guy in the middle is blaming the guy left and right. Okay, so passing the buck, so to speak, is not going to keep a customer, is not going to go down well with a customer who has complaints and wants the complaints resolved satisfactorily. Okay, so empower, make sure that the staff members who will be involved in handling and resolving the complaint, that they actually have the authority to do it, that they're properly equipped to make decisions that will help them to resolve the problem. And then obviously, service guarantee. Service guarantee is a written agreement or guarantee that the company is committed, the service is committed to provide a service that meets the full expectations of the customer. Satisfaction guarantee, that's what they want. They want 100% customer satisfaction. They want to know if it doesn't happen, what can they do? Service guarantees, it works best if the buyer resistance is very high, if the customer expertise is not that great, because then you can very easily offer them something that in your opinion is fair. They don't know, they're not customer experts, so they don't know better. But that's often when people will not be in a position to fix the problem that they have experienced and that they're complaining about themselves, and they need an expert to resolve it for them because they're not experts. And therefore, the guarantee provides them with that promise that somebody will help me. My car breaks down. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not sure where to start looking for a problem. But because I have that guarantee from my dealership that they will resolve issues like this for first 100,000 kilometers or for first 5 years or whatever, that gives me the peace of mind as a customer that there will be experts that can actually help me if I'm a novice. Service guarantees can also work very well if the influence of negative word of mouth can be very damaging for your business. Then it's better to just resolve the issue by guaranteeing somebody in the form of a compensation or a reward. Not to keep them quiet. It's not a bribe. It's just a way in which you said, whoa, you know what? If I don't resolve this sufficiently, I'm actually going to end up being bad-mouthed. It happened to me. There was an incident involved where a mountain bike got stolen from my garage while a particular company was installing laminated flooring in my house. I was not there the whole day. Kids were at school. My domestic worker was at home. But like previous examples that I've shared with you, she's been with us for more than 25 years, if not longer. And you know what? When I got home and the bike was missing, there were only two, in my opinion, there was only one possible guilty party, and that was somebody that worked in that house that day. Because I take my domestic worker home every day after work, it couldn't have been her, because I mean, if it was her, she wouldn't have been then. The bike would have been gone, and she would have taken the bike home. But anyway, that was never, to me, it was never an issue, because when they initially booked for the installation, it was actually supposed to happen the following day. So I was at work already when they phoned me and said, "Sir, we had a cancellation. Can we do the installation today?" I said to them, "Listen, I'm not going to be at home, but my domestic worker is there. I trust her, and she will be able to open for you. Let me give her a call and just inform her and prepare her that you guys are on the way." So that sort of happened beforehand. Long story short, bike was missing. I called everybody together and I said, "Guys, are these the supervisor? I said, are these the guys that work here today? He says, yes, this is me and these are the guys. I said, anybody saw the bike missing? No, sir. Because I mean, the one garage door was open and they were cutting the wood in the driveway, and so I said to me, it must be somebody else. I said, well, you think that somebody who walks past my house with a 20-meter driveway is going to walk past all your workers into my garage, which is a further 5 meters from the road, pick a bike, and there were 3 bikes there, pick a bike, and then walk out of here again? No, it must be an inside job. I phoned the supervisor, phoned his one of the owners of the business. The owner basically backed the supervisor and said, no, sorry, it's not our problem. And I thought, you know what? Wrong choice of words. Not my problem. It will become your problem. I followed up with him. Nothing happened. They basically said, so your bike's insured, put an insurance claim in. I said, I don't want to put insurance claim in because then I'm losing my no claim bonus. And I actually went to their shop 3 days later because the issue wasn't resolved and nobody was getting back to me. So I walked in to their shop and I could immediately see in the back room was the manager that I spoke to. But he doesn't know me because we've never met. So I walked up to the reception lady and said, remember I phoned you yesterday and the day before about this? And then I could see the manager was like, okay, right, I'm cornered now. I don't want to know where to go. She came out and said, can you help me, sir? I said, you know what? You can. I'm going to tell you what you are going to do because it's very clear that you're not going to compensate me for that. And I don't expect you to compensate me for the loss of my bicycle. It is insured. I have put a claim into an insurance. The bike will be refunded. I don't expect you to do that. I expect you to own up to what has happened to prevent it from happening again. I'm offering you a solution here, and I'm telling you it could have been this and this. Yeah, we have many contracted employees here that work on different jobs. That's exactly. So if something like this happened and your business was my business, if I was in your position, I would like to know who is the person in this business that I cannot trust when I send them out to clients if these things happen. That's all I'm leaving you with. Food for thought. That's how I resolved the issue because I know it wasn't going to be resolved from that side. Okay, long story short, based on that, I did go to a complaints website where people can lodge their complaints free of charge. And I said what happened to me and just warn people in future, just be careful, especially of this business, because they've got unreliable staff working for them, and they are obviously also not in a hurry to solve problems and get rid of people that they can't trust, and that's a bad that influences the reputation of their business badly. But anyway, that was my personal experience that I had with a service provider. What are the managerial implications here? You want to encourage complaints using communication channels. You want to ensure that your staff, deliver such a good service that there won't be complaints. It's unrealistic because it will happen. You are working with customers who are not always going to be consistent in how they experience a particular service. So when a complaint happens, A, how are you going to resolve it? B, how are you going to communicate it with your customers to ensure that the customer, through this complaint, has not just remained satisfied with the outcome, but was impressed with the way in which you handled the complaint, because that will have positive spin-offs in future. Have suggestion boxes, have 0800 numbers available. Make sure that you allow on your website space where people can lodge their complaints. It's very important because that provides you with the information that you need to address it, because you can only fix a problem if you know about it, and secondly, to learn from it, to not repeat it in future, and to put measures in place to avoid it from happening again. Right. Andriska, we're going to finish off with a case study. And the case study is something that, again, unfortunately involves South African Airways. Now, in 2002, it happened on a flight between Durban and Port Elizabeth. There's a young girl called Caroline Immelman. She was traveling unaccompanied from PE to Durban to visit her father for the holidays. What happened to her is that when the plane landed in Durban, everybody was actually disembarking, and the cabin crew announced that everybody that was traveling unaccompanied must just remain in their seats, because one of the cabin crew will come and assist him to disembark. Now, it didn't happen. The crew and everybody left, and poor Caroline was left on her own in a seat in the deserted plane. And she obviously started crying, not knowing what to do. She's 10 years old. What do you expect? It must be terrible. It could even have been her first flight unaccompanied, and I can just imagine the trauma that she went through. She was then obviously found by the cleaners, who then obviously her dad was probably in the airport and he was going livid because his daughter went missing between Port Elizabeth and Durban. And then when the cleaners found her, obviously, yeah, it wasn't a nice experience. Now, questions that I want to ask about this specific case study: if you were a customer relations manager and something like this happened, what would you have done? Hey, there are two things that you have to fix here. What are the two things you have to fix, and how would you have reacted in a situation like this, Andriska? Ek kan maar Afrikaans antwoord, maak nie saak nie.
Kan meneer gou weer vra asseblief, my ding lag hierso.
Wil jy die vraag hê of moet ek die situasie weer vir jou skets? Jy verstaan, jy het gehoor van die meisiekind wat op die vliegtuig agterbly het, né? Dit was die case study het gegaan oor die meisiekind wat op die vliegtuig gebly het nadat sy gevlieg het van PE na Durban toe. Nadat al die crew almal het van die vliegtuig afgegaan en sy daar agter gebly. En ja, onsmaaklike situasie, veral omdat hulle van gesê het, maar as dit wag, hulle sal kom help. And then everybody just forgot about it. How would you handle a situation like that? Wat sal jy doen in so 'n situasie as dit met jou gebeur en jy is nou SAI's relationship manager? Jy moet nou met die customer gaan werk, want die pa kan ek so is wolslange van.
Wel, ek weet nie, dis 'n moeilike een, dis 'n baie moeilike situasie. So as ek hier relationships manager was, dan sou ek eers seker gemaak het die kind is veilig. En dan sou ek dadelik die ouers in kontak gekry het om hulle terug te om die ouers in kontak gekry het.
Ja.
Ek sou ook vir hulle vir Caroline se familie een of ander soos 'n opmaak, either flight tickets of soos vir so 'n situasie sou ek basies gesê het free flight tickets vir die res van die jaar.
Okay. Andriska, ek sien nou jy's jou chat wat deurgekom het dat jy moet gaan. Jy's heeltemal reg. Daar's twee dinge wat opgelos moet word hierso. Eerste instansie is die ouers en die meisie betrokke is die mense wat gelukkig gehou moet word. Of hulle nou gereimburse word of hulle nou free flyer miles kry vir hoeveel jaar of maande of wat ek al, dit is die belangrikste om seker te maak om vir hulle uit te vind wat vir hulle nodig is. As sy byvoorbeeld moet gaan vir moontlike mediese behandeling, sielkundige behandeling as gevolg van die trauma, jy moet in situasies daarin moet jy vir hulle daai oplossing bied. Maar net so belangrik, jy moet ook met die personeel wat op die vliegtuig was, die cabin crew, moet jy mee praat en hulle, want dit kan nie weer gebeur so 'n situasie nie. So jy moet die probleem op twee plekke oplos. Jy moet die probleem oplos binne die besigheid, met ander woorde, onder jou crew, laat dit nie weer gebeur nie. En verder, primêr, eerste belangrikste punt is dat jy met jou customer gelukkig hou, en dit is die meisie wat gevlieg het en haar ouers. Dit is, jy sou dit maar reg, dit is die heel belangrikste. En daar's 'n paar maniere wat mens kan doen, soos jy voorgestel het ook. Andriska, ja, ek is jammer, ek het 'n bietjie ekstra tyd van jou gevat. Maar ek het die recording gedoen. Ons is by die einde van hierdie hoofstuk en ons gaan môre ons 'n bietjie kyk na wat het ons in die afgelope 6 maande gedoen en hoe berei julle voor vir die eksamen. Okay.
Meneer, ek wil net gou vir meneer vra, nee. Ek wil net gou 100% seker maak, nee. Dat ons skryf net eksamen, ons skryf nie 'n pre-toets of enige iets ekstra soos dit nie. Ons skryf net die eksamen op die 2 Julie.
Korrek.
Okay, cool, want ja, dat is al wat ek wou geweet het.
Ja,
en dan
verskillende vakke het nou verskillende vereistes. Sales marketing het jy die assignment gedoen wat ons gaan terugvoer gee vir jou vir julle oor. Julle het die formule geskryf en die klastoets gedoen en dan het julle die die eksamen wat voor lê. So dit is dit, ja. Ek weet by ander vakke sal byvoorbeeld nou weet oral exams en goed is dit, maar nie deel van hierdie in nie.
Okay, so vir hierdie jaar is dit net of vir hierdie vak was dit basies net gewees die assignment plus die klastoetse plus die eksamen.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Baie dankie meneer.
Met plesier. Ons chat weer môre. Geniet jou middag.
Is reg, selfde meneer, baie dankie. Bye.
Bye bye.